in history very well. You will recall that during the First Republic, 1964, in preparation for the 1965 elections, there were coalitions between the existing parties. That was the first time we had coalitions in Nigeria. The NPC, I have it here, the NPC, the NDDP, and the MDF, and had a coalition called Nigerian National Alliance. Then you also had another coalition, the NEPU, the NCNC, Action Group, and United Middle Belt Congress all came together to form UPGA. They went into the elections, and because the elections were largely boycotted in eastern Nigeria, fully boycotted, mostly boycotted in the Midwest, and then partially boycotted in the West and Lagos. And as a result, Azikiwe could not form a government. And it was as a result of the fallout of what the uprising, and you mentioned that people went to Abuja. When we talk of popular uprising, it is spontaneous and it is irreversible. I mean, you cannot confront it. And that's what we are heading for if we're not careful in Nigeria, which is why I believe that the federal government has at last risen from that scenario which you are painting now, where government was sponsoring various parties, to deregister parties. It is something that I have been advocating for a long time. Government should stop paying subventions to parties, because some of these parties cannot stand on their own, and we have seen exactly that. Between 2011 and 2014, INEC has observed many of these parties and discovered that they are one-man parties, at best two-man parties, one-office parties, and they have been deregistered. Those that have been actually viable, that have had the following and have had the support of the people, are the ones that are remaining now. Now, some of them have come together in coalition. The object of the coalition is to unseat the party in government, which is the PDP. What is going to be the outcome of that is what we should be talking about now, because the prognosis right now is that if the elections of 2015 fail, Nigeria is likely to become a failed state. Nobody wants that. So what we are supposed to be discussing as people and as individuals is how we can make use of this situation to bring out the best in Nigeria, which is what I see that this coalition is trying to do.
What would be the reason to describe the election in 2015 a failure? Is there any chance of it being a failure?
Well, let's tell the truth. If we want to stop standing truth on its head, there have been no fair and free and fair elections in Nigeria, ever.
And do we have any chance of having one?
That is the question.
Some are just better than others.
Some are better, but a partial thief is not better than
a thief.
If you understand.
A full-time thief.
Yes, a full-time thief. So we're saying, look, this bio whatever, which will ensure that there is no dual voting, which will ensure that there is no bio capture of particulars, which will ensure that there is no dual voting, which is used abroad everywhere, except in the case where there is an electronic breakdown of things, which was supposed to be used in the last elections, would have brought peace and serenity to Nigeria.
So you are now advocating e-voting?
E-voting. Yes. E-voting.
Do we have the wherewithal to conduct that?
No. You're putting words in my mouth. What I am saying is that we may not get to e-voting, but we need to confirm the candidature, the voters list through biometrics, because that was exactly what was supposed to be, but somehow it was stood on its head, and at the end of the day it was thrown out. We have had re-elections in some states in Nigeria, and the government has sent in the soldiers, and the soldiers have ensured that there are no ballot box snatches, no ballot box stuffing and all that. And we have actually had overturns of elections. And even in the courts, people have been able to go to court and prove that the electoral results that were announced before were either announced in error or there was some other thing behind it. And these electoral results have been overturned for many states, particularly in the Southwest. Now, what we are saying is that how do we ensure that there is a complete and total and national free and fair election? It's not by merely having observers. And of course, it will be almost impossible to have the army overrun the whole of Nigeria because we're trying to have elections. So the point now is, how do we as Nigerians buck the trend and ensure that there are fair elections in a nation in Africa?
Words in your mouth. Let me ask you a direct question.
Okay.
Would you advocate e-voting for Nigeria?
I would advocate e-voting if we had uninterrupted electricity. Yes, the wherewithal. But we do not have the infrastructure on ground for e-voting. So what we do have is what INEC showed last time. E-capture was done all over the nation. They had their batteries, they had their laptops, portable laptops, and they took all the biometrics needed. Why were they not applied? Now, that is also, and interestingly enough, you've brought out the one weakness of this coalition. Incumbency has always been a major factor of political I don't have the word now, of the inability to achieve political perfection in any nation. Incumbency has always ensured that the government in power, and I say power now because Nigerians don't say administration anymore, they say power, which is a hangover from the military era. The government in power will ensure that it employs all that is at its disposal to distort the elections, and that includes using the security forces.
If I may comment,
which comes to the issue of state police. Are we going to talk about state police?
When you were saying something about fair and fair election 2015, and you actually took the question out of my mouth when you put it to Ambassador Segun and
Femi Segun.
They are coming together as a political entity. I don't see what that has to do with whether we have free and fair election in Nigeria in future. And which was the point I was trying to also make. When we seem to concentrate too much. We should concentrate on the federal level. But that should not be at the expense of looking at these people that are coming together. They should be asked the question. If they say they want free and fair election, they have also had the opportunity of conducting elections in their states. And the elections they've conducted, you can't say they are any better. In fact, I would describe them as worse than the one they are criticizing. If they, for instance, have 50 local governments in a state, the party in power will have 50-0. Not even one councillor for the other party. Are those the people to come together to be telling us about free and fair election? To say that they are coming together to fight a free and fair election? So to fight for whatever they want to. So we cannot, when we look at this, there's change in the air in Nigeria. I am not criticizing them. It's their fundamental right to come together and form whatever. If you are not taking the opportunity, if there's an opportunity, you are not taking it. You cannot say the other person wants to take the opportunity, is not entitled to.
So what
this is about value.
Let me ask you this question. What would you say to an individual on Twitter? He's called Concerned Nigerian, and he says PDP and APC is like the devil and the deep blue sea. Nigerians must make a decision on where to jump, because jump we must. No sitting on the fence.
That's what I've just said, that Nigerians are beginning to realize that their destiny.
But what is the option that we have? The APC, All Progressive Congress, or the PDP? What options do we have?
Look, before a judge will give a decision that people know have, strong impact on what happens on the society, will come on TV, criticize, fold their arms and all that at the end of the day. Now, some people took it up on their own to say, look, we are not going to criticize for criticizing sake again. We are going to begin to let them know that, this thing is, you shouldn't do it this way. They are not lawyers, they are not judges, but to let the system know that, look, you cannot continue this way. And it's beginning to have effect. Don't forget that usually before, was the one in House of Rep, the unfortunate gentleman that was the one involved in the dollar, whatever, $10 or something.
Okay, Farouk Lawan.
Usually before, what the court will say, okay, I'm hearing your bill, go and put him, let him be with EFCC up to whatever. But you saw what happened. He was sent to jail to go and stay in jail until your bail application comes up, which is what it's supposed to be. So the effect of people coming up to stand up to say, look, this is our judiciary. We cannot allow it to continue to go down the drain. It will embolden the judges too to know that, look, we are behind you. Do what you have to do to save this country. So it's having its effect. It's not the solution is not political. It's not.
Come back to the fact that we're talking politics and we're looking at Nigeria. What are the options open? The APC or the PDP? Is there any difference? Because at the end of the day, yes, do an introduction.
We've since been joined by Mr. Kazeem Akinriti, who's a journalist. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Okay, we'll ask you the same question in just a minute. But in terms of the options that are there, people have often said that it is not down to the electorate what kind of candidate that they vote for, because it is what is presented on the day of the election that you will choose from. If you have the best minds, you will have no choice but to make a choice.
I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think Mr. Segun said, it was I'm almost going to say that looking for change through the electoral process in Nigeria is, I don't want to say hopeless. Why I don't want to say hopeless is this. I'll give you one example. People have said, Nigerian police was bad, corrupt, this, that. We all know. But in the midst of that gloom, I'm not praising anybody. There's a lot wrong with the Nigerian police force up to now. In the midst of that gloom, somebody came up one day as Inspector General of Police and said, look, people have been saying roadblock. We are not going to have roadblocks again. They started sponsoring news propaganda. If you remove roadblock, Nigeria will collapse. There will be robbery every day. There will be this. It's been removed for some time now. And I don't think our situation is worse than, but there has been some improvement. At least you can travel freely without all this harassment and all that. So, in the midst of the gloom, there could be something that will happen, that like this one that I've just cited. So, that's why I don't want to use the word hopeless for democracy in Nigeria. The incumbency factor that he mentioned is so strong. Secondly, and why the incumbency factor is actually strong is because money. You get the money easily from government to corrupt the system, to buy votes, you have more money to spend than your opposition party and so on and so forth.